Hey, hey, greetings, Osio, Witiachulurani. Welcome to the Red Road East. I'm your host, Feerce Truth Seeker. The Red Road East is an indigenous TV program dedicated to archiving and preserving the history, legacy, and culture of the original peoples of the Americas east of the Mississippi River and the Caribbean. So, this month, we are in the month of March, heading into April, and this is Garifuna Heritage Month. Okay. And so I want to continue with this show where we left off the last time. And we're going to have our guest return. Okay. And I know a lot of people did really appreciate that show. Okay. And so, back by popular demand, I am going to bring in Arufudahatu Nisani.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And Feerce.
Uti Rabanweyu.
Girabaweyu.
Yeah. So, you're back.
Yes,
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
it is.
Real pleasure to have you again. And so, let's get right into it. And so now we are in, as I opened up, talking about Garifuna Heritage Month. So I would like for you to reintroduce yourself briefly and talk about, let that lead into talking about Garifuna Heritage Month and the historical events associated with it, and also the significance of the months of March and April.
Yes. So, Buitirabanweyu. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nisani Niribe. And just as a quick refresher for those that were not on the last live stream that we've done, the Garifuna are a mixed African and indigenous group from the countries of Belize, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, and St. Vincent in Central America and the Caribbean. And we come from just a very rich, beautiful culture, and we speak a language of the same name called Garifuna, which is an Arawakan language. And so essentially, me and Fierce are on here to tell more stories, about underrepresented indigenous groups, and trying to shine a light on these beautiful cultures that were the original cultures of the spaces that we all now inhabit today, so that we can do better for our children and the generations that come thereafter. So that's just a little bit of a refresher. It's nice to be back. Thank you so much for having me again. And a little bit more about this month, March. So we are in March 26th right now, as of the time that we're making this video. It's March 26th, 2025, documenting it. And yeah, we are in a very important part of history first and foremost, but this is another time that honors the legacies of our ancestors. And Garinagu people are very, very strong because the attempted genocide, displacement, and persecution of our people did not break our spirit or our culture. And Garifuna Heritage Month this time speaks to the resistance of our people and the persecution that we've gone through. It speaks to the preservation of a really unique, beautiful, and vibrant culture that still stands following these decades of oppression. And like I said, honors the ancestors' long, arduous journey so that we could get to where we are today. And being descendants of African, Carib, and Arawak Indians, we fought very fervently for decades against the British to maintain our ancestral homeland of Yurume in Garifuna, or St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we've also created multiple homelands in the midst of many, many displacements and attempted genocide. And this all this all starts in the late 1600s when there was consistent contact between Africans and Carib Indians, which led to numerous Afro-Caribbean marriages and a very rich culture forming, our culture. However, tension started to rise in the late 1700s when the British started settling on the native land of the Garinagu people. And so this ensued from 1769 all the way until 1783, when the British fought to occupy St. Vincent. And every time they tried to do that, they were met with Garifuna resistance. Each time, each and every time, because we are, like I said, very, very strong. And the first Carib War started in 1769 and ended in 1773 with a stalemate peace treaty. The fight continued with the Second Carib War from 1795 to 1797. And with a really, really strong spirit, French allyship, we were allied by the French, and assistance of a Garifuna military strategist, diplomat, and chief, Joseph Chatoyer. Please, guys, if you do not know who this man is, he was a very, very, very important part of our history. Please Google him. Joseph, Chatoyer, Joseph Chatoyer, very important man. With the help of all of these forces and people, the Garifuna started to regain control over St. Vincent in the beginning, but Chatoyer was assassinated March 14th, 1795. And this combined with the 1783 Treaty of Paris helped the British usurp ownership from us once again. And so now we come to a really, really important part of the Garifuna history, where in July of 1796, the Garifuna were exiled on Baliso, an island off of the coast of St. Vincent, in very, very cruel conditions where more than half of us perished. And then following that, if we thought that it couldn't get even more dire, it does, because on March 11th, 1797, over 5,000 Garifuna men, women, and children survivors were exiled again to the Honduran island of Roatan, which was literally an act of attempted genocide towards our people, because they noticed that in Balisol, we weren't necessarily in the best of conditions, but we also were still trying to find a way to survive in the midst of everything. And the British did not like that. And so they exiled us once again to try to kill us off. Of course, that being said, since we are still here, me, Feerce, and a multitude of other Garifuna communities all across major cities in the US and Central America, that did not work, because we arrived from that second exile on the Honduran mainland on April 12th, 1797, and are living to tell the story. We later migrated to Greater Central America, first arriving in Belize on November 19th, 1802, and later settling in Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Honduras, where we continue our indigenous practices and celebration. And like I said, you can also find Garifuna. Garifuna people also live in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the greater US as well, in major cities such as the one I just mentioned. So New York City, LA, Chicago, and a host of others. So yeah, that is a little bit about our history. And now fast forward to the future, every year from 2008, Garifuna American Heritage Month is celebrated from March 11th, the time of our exile, to April 12th when we arrived on the shores of Honduras. And it is officially recognized as a New York State holiday, backed by government officials. So this is an official holiday that marks how far we've come as a people and where we're going next.
So now, please explain to the viewers the meaning of the word Garifuna and also why yucca or cassava, as it's otherwise known, is so important to the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So Garifuna is a really cool word, in my opinion, because it just speaks to the intermixture of all of these different factors. Like I said, in the first, the first thing we talked about, and it comes from the word kalipona, which is the origin word. And it's one of the self identified names of the Kalinago people, so our ancestors. And the original name of the Kalinago, or one of the original names for them as well, was Karifuna, meaning the cassava clan. And so when you put that change of intonation in, we get the word garifuna, which means cassava eater. And this reflects really accurately on both sides that we come from. So our Afro-Indigenous ancestry, because Gary, fun fact, is actually a food that's made from cassava root that's eaten in West Africa. So you can find this in Nigeria, Ghana. That is a mainstay staple of West Africans' diet in a multitude of countries, just like us. And yuca and cassava is a really central aspect of that. The culture, the cuisine, and it not only speaks to this Afro-Indigenous heritage, but also the sustenance that was responsible for bringing us through those really, really hard times where our survival was on the line, and I saw this somewhere where there's like a legend that Garifuna hid cassava, you know, in their clothes where it stayed alive, watered by like their sweat on the journey to Roatan. And when we got to Roatan, we were able to harvest and create a multitude of fishing villages in greater Central America thereafter because we had that mainstay and that staple that's been with us for centuries, even past when Christopher Columbus came. That was always a part of our diet, our lifestyle, our culture as Afro Indigenous folks. But it was even more so when we were under really cruel and uncertain conditions. We knew that that was the thing that was going to help us survive. So wherever we went, as rough as it was, we took that with us, and it was able to maintain us, our people. And these unique aspects are really what's at the heart of the culture today. Again, that mixture of that, African and that indigenous that make us who we are. So, yeah, that's a little bit more about that.
What we're going to do is we're going to give the viewers a little bit of what they will experience when they take a class with
Mm.
Arufudahatu Nisani
Aye.
and the other great teachers.
Yes.
So let us begin our dialogue here. Okay. And all right, so we're going to begin the dialogue and begin with Arufudahatu Nisani.
Aye, let's go. Game on. All right. Numada. Agura baba. Witiguyon. Kasambiri.
Fierce Truth Seeker Nidibe Katabusan.
Arufudahatu Nisani Niribe. Hey. Anihe aba alagudahoni numa.
Alugudabana.
Adimra hati busang Garifuna?
Aye. Adilbrin Hatina Garifuna.
Ida liam bariengo table lidang Garifuna.
Abidi etie. Siati Nidoragunibu.
Sereme luagu bidemwe.
Wati Megeti.
All
So,
right.
yeah, that was a little dialogue in Garifuna. And now, what we're going to do, we're going to repeat that same dialogue, but what we're going to do is we're going to do it in English so that the viewers, you can understand exactly what was just being said. Okay. So, we'll start Arufudahatu Nisani, who will start the dialogue.
All right. My friend, wait briefly. Good evening. What's your name?
My name is Fierce Truth Seeker. Who are you?
My name is Arufudahatu Nisani. Hey, I have a question.
Ask me.
Do you speak Garifuna?
Yes, I speak Garifuna.
How do you say table in Garifuna?
I don't know. I can't help you.
Thanks for your help.
You're welcome.
Right.
Yeah. So now Arufudahatu Nisani. So now that was some good dialogue there. It's short and brief and to the point.
Yes.
However, now I will say I haven't even taken classes for a year yet, not even a year. And I can hold a brief dialogue.
Yes, and you've been doing great. Great, great, great. You
Thank
know,
you.
I think this is another reason why like I really like just working with like with you guys and just with everybody in the online community because you don't have to be a pro to just pass on what you know. And as a student, it's the same way around. Like you don't have to be, you know, this expert to even take a class. You could start from wherever you are and find a community of people that are in a similar like similar boat as you, and connect with those people, learn with those people, learn with your classmates, and just get to a better space, you know by connecting with the community that's there. And so I just really like that it's very accessible. It's very like approachable, I guess is the word that I would use. It makes it so that when you learn, it just feels easy. You feel like you're breezing through, but you're also getting the input that you need to say what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly.
hmm
Yeah.
doing great. That being said, and yeah, that was a
Oh,
cool comment.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. And you're an excellent teacher, and all of the teachers, there are excellent and wonderful. Yeah.
Sarah May, thank you so much.
Yeah. And so now, what features did we find in that dialogue that may be of interest to non speakers?
Um, a lot of these phrases are practical phrases that, like I said, you could start using from day one. Like, my friend, good evening, what's your name? My name is, asking someone if they speak Garifuna and vice versa. And like I said, what makes Garifuna for non speakers unique is that you can start speaking from day one with that really holistic Garifuna input, and you build gradually on your weekly output through context with a really supportive class environment by your side. And this combo right here that we just did for those watching was achieved through phrase breakdown, spelling, pronunciation, class quizzes during like the weekly lectures, and also the online platform so that you could just understand fully and you can expand on your practical phrases and vocab. And it's just an example of literally what a few weeks, not even a few months, what a few weeks of learning can do and continue to do as you reach new levels. And this approach just makes the start of the language journey really easy to build momentum and follow through on because, like I said before, it's very incremental where we're slowly building on information as the weeks go by, and we're putting you in practical class-based scenarios where you're able to immediately have that input and output, so putting you in that situation so that eventually it just becomes muscle memory and you're able to just recall really, really fast. Even if you aren't able to recall the fastest, the information will still be with you because you're getting that consistent exposure. So that's the key, and we give you the space to do all of that. And like I said, that's just part of what I really like about this program. And I'm excited for more classes in the future.
Indeed, indeed. And talk about Garifuna language structure in terms of like gender, regional differences, things of that nature.
Yeah. So Garifuna is a gendered language in two ways. So the first one is that every noun has a gender. So, for example, book is garudiato, which is feminine, but sodieru is sodierule, which is masculine. So the pot is masculine. But the second way that Garifuna is gendered is that males and females also have their own words to say the same phrases. So if we're talking towards a singular person, you singular, it would be bugia for females, you singular, versus amuru for males, or ayi for females versus aye for males to say yes, or uwa for females versus ino for males to say no. So these are just a few examples. This isn't always the case, but it is very, very common in our language. And we also discuss regional differences in the beginner 1A course that we teach, because this is a very, very common thing. Regionally and gender wise, we just have a lot of breadth. Garifuna is one of those languages where I love it in that there's so many different ways to say what you want to say in the language. And the class time is literally the time where you could take advantage and play around, experiment if you're given the space in those in context based scenarios with your peers, with your classmates, to really just get that output out, and find out what works. Because due to the breadth, like I said, of the Garifuna community in Central America, regional differences are also present depending on what country and even what community, within any given country you're in. But those differences don't affect being understood. So, you know, you can literally say so much. Like if you're asking somebody, how are you in Garifuna, you have four options. I don't know many other languages where that's a thing. You have four different ways that you can say how are you, you know? And we introduced that very, very early going forward. The four ways is you could say ida bia, you could say ida biangi, or ida biangia. There's four different ways, and that's just the surface of what I'm talking about, and like the many different ways that you could just express yourself. So excited about.
Yeah. And in terms of reading and writing the language, what features of interest should non-speakers take note of in terms of like things like diacritical marks, uh, syllables, structure, and things of that nature, the little intricacies uh,
Mm-hmm.
that distinguish the Garifuna language.
Yes. So that being said, as much breadth as we have with the regional differences, diacritical marks are very, very important. And that's because, like with many other languages out there, accent marks can change both the sound and meaning of words. For example, we have the word in Garifuna numa. Numa with no accent mark is Numa, which means with me. However, if you spell it Numa with an accent mark, you get Numa, which is shorthand for Numada, which means my friend. And obviously, with me and my friend mean two different things. And again, Garifuna for non-speakers phrase of the day breakdowns really hone in on those syllables, including stress marks, so that you can start to get comfortable speaking and say what you want to say while also expanding on your vocabulary. So this also includes going over accent marks and where to put the stress on certain words versus not put the stress, and also how to pronounce vowels, letters when the time comes for things like that. So we do that incremental build so you're not so overwhelmed. But eventually, when you look back and see how far you've come and how much you've learned, you really start to put everything into perspective and say, wow, I really did learn a lot because I was getting that incremental input. I didn't realize it yet, but that incremental input really helped me out a lot. So, diacritical marks are important, but not to worry. We guide you through that process one step at a time. So, you'll be in good hands if you choose to join us.
Yes. Yeah. Those marks, those diacritical marks, can definitely make a difference. And I remember in one of the classes, Arufudahatu Ede gave me a little pow pow for with Numa, you know,
Mhm.
and there was one of the dialogues, I think, from the class, and it was the one with the accent,
Yeah.
and without, the contraction of Numada, and then the other with me, and I was stuck on that one, and I couldn't. And she said, "But there's two," and then I said, "Oh
I
man."
get that though completely though. Once you get used to hearing or thinking of a certain word in a certain way, you start to stick to that. Your brain
Mhm.
starts to want to stick to that even if in your gut, in your mind, you've been told that that's not the case. You just want to keep sticking to that. But again, I think that's just what I really, really like about Garifuna for non-speakers. I find myself in that stage too sometimes where I have
Mhm.
to break myself out of certain habits, and I'm like, wait, no, I know what I'm saying right now is not correct. But that's just, I guess, the beauty of the journey. And I like that everybody is able to come from so many different, walks of life, different countries. Like, people from Garifuna for non-speakers come from all over the world to learn and, get access to this really unique and beautiful language. And we're just all we're all slowly building, on these skills. So it's a
Mhm.
consistent work in progress. And yeah, it's awesome to even be able to have the opportunity, like I keep saying, to teach these classes and to be a student as well. Because along with teaching, I don't just teach, I also take classes as well with Arufudahatu Ere. And
Mhm.
um yeah, it's been a blast just to be able to learn so much and learn from my students too. When I teach each new class, every time I feel like I learned something new, or I
Mhm.
refresh what I might have, like, forgotten, or like didn't really think about too much, until I'm like, I go back and I'm like, wow, like that's really good information to keep in the back of my head as well. So this is all just a dynamic process, and we're all doing it. We're learning languages, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah, and it's very important that we keep this going, because as we spoke about in the last show,
Hmm.
that the language is an endangered language,
Yes,
you
for
know.
sure, most definitely. Because if we don't, yeah, I don't like saying it because it makes me really sad to think about. But it is a proven fact that if a language is not spoken within one generation, it's lost. It's not saying that it can't be revitalized, but
Mhm.
it becomes even harder once a whole generation of people do not speak. And so, again, I'm really grateful to have this platform. I'm really, really grateful to be here with you talking about this and spreading more information on the Garifuna people, our language, our culture, so that more people could just get invested and really understand that we have the gift of language. Because with the whole history that I explained, I understand it was probably really lengthy, but I wanted to do it justice and explain to everybody because, I'm sure everybody probably knows this history or is familiar, but even for those that are not, we've been through such a long, arduous journey to get to where we are now. So in my perspective, why would we not want to go like get more in touch with our roots. It's not
Mhm.
saying that you have to be fluent or anything. I'm not saying that by any means, by the way. Anyone that's watching this, I'm not saying that in no way, shape, or form. I'm not fluent yet. Um, I'm still learning as well. But, you know, I feel like there's so much that we can learn from our ancestors, stories that have yet to be uncovered, you know, and perspectives that we have yet to find out about with our own culture. We have this. So many other people across the globe cannot say that. We are the last surviving indigenous Caribbean language spoken. I just let that sink in
Mhm.
sometimes and I'm like, wow, like how did we as a community just get so lucky? Like we need to take this opportunity and grab it because if we don't, yeah, like it's kind of on us because we didn't take the time to learn, expand our mind, just, grow. So, yeah, I'm just taking it, finding like-minded people and running with it. So, thanks again for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And the history that you were breaking down, no, no, by no means was it too lengthy. I was waiting for some more.
There's
And
so
my
much more I could share, like so much more, and different aspects as well of you know the timeline and the people involved and all of these other things. But yeah, most definitely, like Garifuna history is so rich, and that's part of why I like sharing because there's so many like facets to it that made us who we are. Like if you just think about that particular person had to be at that place at that time to make me and all of us who we are. Like if we think about that, that's pretty amazing. So
Mhm.
I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful that I get to share more of this information with everybody and you know, yeah, just continue to do the work that I do to teach more people and get people inspired to connect more with their roots, their culture, and yeah, I'm having a blast. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. I'm having a blast too. And my audience is an audience that loves history. So never feel that you're overdoing it or anything like that because they want to know. What's your contact information and or website that they can visit, where they can register for classes?
Yes, good question. So the website is currently in progress. We are working on that. That's loading. But for more information, you can contact the Garifuna for non-speaker support email at support@garifunafns.com. We will be happy to get in touch and just answer any further questions you may have or get you up in a class with us. So we hope to see you soon. We hope to have you and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, now repeat that email again for
You
them.
want to reach out to support@garifunafns.com. Yes.
Good, good. Yeah. All right. Boy, I tell you, I really, really, really enjoyed this, really enjoyed this, you
Yes, it
know.
was a really good conversation,
Mhm.
and yeah, there's more stories to tell after this. So
for sure.
Like
And
life has a
we're,
dynamic process.
yeah, we're still in Garifuna Heritage Month, so I'm definitely gonna have you back again. So we're gonna sign off and thank you again, Arufudahatu Nisani.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Okay, folks. So that was a blast for sure. For sure. I know you definitely had your ears full, your palate is satisfied, you know, and you're starving and craving for more. So make sure that you come back again because it's going to be even more interesting the next time. Okay. So I'm going to sign off now. All right. And until the next time, Dododagaha'i, Sarame, Ayo.